Okay, this is part two. So anyway, these beings in the late 1950s, it's called the elephant skin or wrinkly skin alien. And it's basically the same being that were displayed in Pasaguela, Mississippi. It's on the internet. You can find the images of these beings, and they actually use, uh, it's actually an extraterrestrial robot. It's an anti-gravity and it floats above the ground. If it's in a building, it'll float half inch or inch above the ground. If they're outside, they may be 2 or 3 feet in the air. They'll hover, and then they'll paralyze the abductees, and then they'll land, do the abduction, take them up, and then bring them back down. Usually they just drop them off. So anyway, so I'm in my home. This is in a small town in the Midwest. I'm in my home, and I was standing up in the hallway. I actually had to go to the bathroom. Bathroom was in the middle of the hallway. This being paralyzed me came to me at the opposite end of the hallway, placed me in this field where time slowed down to zero. I was probably abducted. Then after that, everything blacked out. There's a missing time situation, and I ended up on the floor in the back bedroom. So it's like they did their examination or whatever, and then I was dropped off, and then usually I ended up on the floor. And so when I came around, I was looking to see if the aliens left, and apparently they left. I was on the floor in the back bedroom where my mother was sleeping. I was probably trying to run back and warn her, but it could be that the aliens did whatever and then they left. And basically that's the story. But the significance is these are extraterrestrials. These they have the ability, they have enormous control over time, space, time, and gravity. Enormous control. They can harness energy sources from a star, from several stars, or from something called a mini black hole, which is a smaller black hole, something that's not necessarily large enough to swallow up their own spaceship, but they have control over gravity, and they can extract the energy from it, from these stars, or from mini black holes. A large black hole they can't control; it's too powerful. But a small black hole, a mini black hole, yes, they can. They will. Some of the races will pick these up and they'll string them along because you can use them both as a weapon and you can use them as a power source if you know how to go in and extract the energy. So, so they can get close to merging all the, like we talked about unified field theory. They can get close to merging all the forces: the gravitational force, electromagnetic force, the strong and weak nuclear force. They can get close to merging all of them together, where time starts to slow down to zero. Maybe they can't go all the way back to zero, the Big Bang, but they can get close to it, and that requires an enormous amount of energy to produce something that comes close. But they can do that, and that's the trick on how they travel. They basically create these fields, and they wrap their spaceship around these fields. And so the laws of physics for them is now going to be different than the laws of physics for the outside world. So space-time is controllable, but to them, because they're more advanced. Now our Black Project people, they've back engineered a lot of this. They can already duplicate a lot of this already. They already know how to do all this in secret, but they can't tell us about it. They're not going to tell us about it because the secrecy programs, there is there is some good reason for the cover-up. I'll be honest with you, and the reason is the psychological trauma. So let's go back to the Pasadena, Mississippi case. You remember what happened is Charles Hickson came out relatively okay, but Calvin Parker, I believe, he went into a state of shock. He basically went into a state of mental breakdown, and he had contact with these same beings. He went into mental breakdown, and he was severely traumatized by the event. Well, this can happen to a lot of people. So if you start introducing these ideas, you're talking about the super advanced ideas, anti-gravity, altering time and space. These are really bizarre, abstract concepts, and they might be hard for a lot of people to digest. I mean, even for me, I, I understand some of the physics. I don't understand all of it, but I understand some of it. It's very, very complicated. Maybe I can't write all the equations on a blackboard, but I don't need to do that. I understand some of the principles, the basic principles. You don't need to have a PhD in physics to figure it out. You don't need that. I mean, it's if I could hire somebody to do the math for me. I don't need to do that to prove that um, I'm correct. See, actually, the best proof that I'm probably on the right trail is the fact that the men in black have approached me 3 times. Once in 1995. It was actually a woman in black. She may have been a real government attorney. She told me she's a government attorney, and she was following me out of a bookstore where I was looking at the paranormal books and the UFO books and the extraterrestrial books. She followed me out of the bookstore. She goes, "I'm a government attorney," and she was a very serious person. She wasn't. She was a no nonsense person. So she may have been a real human woman in black, and she said she was a government attorney. She probably was. That's the sense I got. There was no kidding around with her. I tried to get her to back off. I said, well, don't worry about me because any ufological person that's studying the subject could be discredited by saying you watch too many science fiction movies or too many Star Wars or Star Trek movies, and they could all be discredited. But she didn't laugh, or she didn't smile or acknowledge the fact that I was just joking around saying, well, anybody that studies the subject can be discredited. So that was the first time. It was 1995. And then in 2005, I had the men in black approach my front door. I didn't even open the door. I moved the blinds over to look. And the man with the black fedora hat and the black sunglasses and the dark suit, maybe with a trench coat, I think, was right at my front door. And I knew exactly who it was because I've been studying the subject for a long time. I have maybe hundreds and hundreds of books on extraterrestrials and the whole thing. I've had a pretty big library. So he came up to my front door, and I didn't even bother to answer the front door because I knew exactly who he was. So I went and sat down in my living room. I said, I'm not going to open the door. I didn't open the door, and then they left. So they don't even have to, like in my case, they don't even have to talk to me. If they approach me, that's enough intimidation right there. And that's what kept me out of research. I stopped my research because of the intimidation factors from the men in black. So now this is 7 years later. So I told this story. I told these stories to Nick Redfern, who's one of the major writers of books, and I told him the story, and he listened to me. See, a lot of the other ufologists won't even listen to me. They won't even talk to me. Maybe because they don't believe me. But my experiences were 100% real. I met at least 4 or 5 different groups of extraterrestrials. Um, I include the Men in Black as part of that because the Men in Black that met me last were probably extraterrestrial aliens. They just appear to be government agents in black suits, but they're real aliens. And so they've approached me, and so I've been, for the most part, I've been very silent. I've only, I don't talk too much to a lot of people about this. I mean, tell told a few people at work or whatever. But see, now I'm retired. I'm not working now. Thank you very much.